If somebody was going to let you know that this is going to work out no matter what, and you have so much of life ahead of you, well, I need to give you the trigger warning because in this episode there is a mention of liquid collagen. There's talk about serious mental health challenges, as well as surviving childhood incest. But at the end, I promise you, you will hear my guest Nina's encouragement that you can not only survive but thrive in life after absolutely anything. You too have so much life ahead of you. I'm Hillary Baggett, host of Hill Talks Midlife, and as an occupational therapist turned entrepreneur after 50, I am on a mission to support women to know that no matter what is going on in your body, mind, spirit, or business, that you can go for it. And you can know that you're not alone. And that's why we created the Women's Midlife Network. While some of us 40 and better are starting our second act, my guest today is starting her third act, and she really is passionate about your health being your wealth. That we can either pay for our health now or our illness later. And I want you to know that you can reframe your mindset, acknowledge, and heal with support through anything. Enjoy meeting Nina. My guest today is Nina Rubin, and we're going to be kind of broadening our speech today, talking about not just physical health and not just mental health, but a little bit of a fusion. And Nina's a former New Yorker living in California, and she was a stay-at-home mom until just 5 years ago. And she's going to talk to us that at the age of 65, she started her career, and she's going to share a little bit more about that with us. So she likes to share the love about the beauty of her skin, the health of her hair, and how women do not need to feel ashamed when they have a mental health issue come up. I love that she's proud of sharing that, and she likes to help you age backwards. So welcome, Nina.
Hi, Hillary. How are you today?
Great. I'm so glad you're here. And before we pressed record, we got to already chat, and I know we're going to have plenty to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Do we have enough time?
We will get to what we can, and then we will schedule another one.
I belong to eWomen Network, and we do round robin discussions at the table. And it's funny, when the timer goes off, what you say is TBC, to be continued.
That's exactly it. And so I would love for you to tell me just a little bit about your journey that got you to today. Can you just take a few minutes to do that?
Okay. Starting back when, as a child, I came from a very dysfunctional household. I mean, most of us in our age group did. But I always say that my dysfunction is what created the person who is sitting before you today. I'm a survivor of incest. So it was just a different type of situation, and we thought everybody did it. Fortunately, I met an incredible man who we knew each other in high school, but not really knew each other. We sort of forced on different levels, and we connected when I was in college, and we've been married for 48 years, and he is extremely supportive, and his family was my first glimpse into a normal family, how a normal family behaves.
We'll say healthy for anyone listening. She did air quotes of normal. So that's right. So many of us think that whatever we grew up with was our normal, air quotes. But in the reality of there are healthy families and unhealthy families.
Absolutely.
So that's great.
Absolutely. So we got married. I was 21 and a half when we got married. We started having, and as I said, as you mentioned, I was a registered dental hygienist, but I went through all that schooling and all that testing, and I worked for 18 months. And then I decided to get pregnant, and my gynecologist didn't want me to be around the x-rays. So my husband said, stay home. So I did, and I never worked again. I never got paid for what I did. I was very active in my children's schools. I was very active in our synagogue, but I never got paid for what I did until 5 years ago.
Absolutely. And that is a super important point, that women out there, your value is critical to the family, society, and whether it's paid or unpaid. So sometimes we think, well, if I volunteered for all those years, then it wasn't valuable, but that is false. So I'm glad you brought that up. Volunteering in your synagogue, caring for your children, and raising them to be independent, functional adults, right?
Absolutely. That was the most important part of my life.
Well, I love that you have a passion really for health and wellness for women. And would you like to share, how did you get to this point of becoming an entrepreneur later in life?
Well, the backstory is my mother, may she rest in peace, was a health nut. She was no sugar, no preservatives, organic back in the 60s, which is she was way before her time. I mean, she was so right on the money. It's scary when things come up now that diseases are caused by certain things. That when they came out with the little pink packets, she goes, we'll never use those. That's poison. I mean, this is, 50 some odd years ago. So I've always had a love for alternative therapies. I've always had a love for clean eating. I've always tried to stay as toxin free as possible. And 5.5 years ago, a friend of mine introduced me to a fabulous supplement. It's a liquid collagen, different than any other collagen in the world. We're actually sold in 80 countries. Actually, a bottle sells every 20 seconds in 80 different countries. So it's a very, very, the efficacy of this product is amazing. And I started to, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask the difference between, I think of collagen in a pill dry format, but you said the efficacy of this being in liquid is significantly greater. And I just wonder why, because it's not just water in there, right?
It actually starts with apple juice fruit concentrate. There's no water in this. There's 13 different fruits in it and the collagen. The difference has to do with, this is a low molecular weight product. And what that means is, if you think of a chain link fence, if you try to put a baseball through a chain link fence, it's not going to go because the molecule is too large, because it's too big for the hole, actually. So that's the same thing with the skin. If you eat any of the powdered collagens, which is why you have to do 1 scoop or 2 scoops of the powder, because only a small percentage of that is being utilized and the rest is being eliminated. It goes, as we say, you're flushing your money down the toilet. So if you have the size of a ping pong ball or a golf ball, that's going to go through the chain link fence because it's small enough. And the difference is the powder only has an efficacy of 30%. My liquid has an efficacy of 90+%. So you could be taking the powder for 6 years, switch over to my liquid for 12 weeks, which is 3 months, and get better results in those 12 weeks than you did in those 6 years. So even though my product is a premium product, if you think about the cost differential of being on something that you're buying every month for 6 years, as opposed to something that you spend a little bit more for, but you're getting your...
That's a really good point of how much are you spending long-term, but do you have to always be on it to maintain the benefits?
Basically, yes. But to begin with, the compliant dosage is 2 measuring tablespoons a day. And by measuring tablespoon, I mean 15 milliliters. So that's why we suggest, we have a spoon that we get on Amazon or through the company periodically. That is the correct measurement, but it's 15 milliliters. Now, what I do, and particularly with women in our age group, and I get yelled at all the time for saying this, is the company suggests that the compliant dosage is 2 tablespoons a day. However, my feeling is, and particularly for those in our age category who have a limited budget, who do not want to work with the company to get, I don't get a discount. I pay the same thing as my customers. I get product points instead. Is start off with commit for 3 months to the compliant dosage of 2 bottles a month, because 1 bottle will last for 2 weeks. And then after the 3rd month, you decide whether you want to continue with 2 bottles or you want to drop down to 1, because the 3-month period is a loading period. And then after it's just maintenance. So yes, if I stop taking it completely, I would revert back to wrinkles. I mean, this is a voice podcast, right? It's not a visual.
There will also be some on YouTube as well.
Okay, so I'm going to come in for a close-up and just show you that I have done no work whatsoever. This is all, and I had a double lid. This, and you can see, this is strictly from drinking this product.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that'll be worth tuning into the YouTube video of
Absolutely.
it. So that is just amazing.
But this is not just for skin and hair and nails, which I can't show you because they need to be manicured. But it literally, as we age, our eyes sink and shrink and sink, our skin sags and drags, our vulva thins out, the actual vagina, the skin becomes atrophied because it becomes gray and pasty and thin. It loses its elastin and its elasticity. And we lose the plumpness. Like the mons is generally, if you look at a little girl, her mons that's where they get the thing camel toe, because it's full. As we age, it flattens because of the loss of collagen. So the collagen, this particular collagen, puts everything back the way it was. When I saw my gynecologist the first week in March, she said to me, "This does not look like the area of a 70 plus year old." She goes, "This looks more like 19.
Wow. That's really effective for all the areas of our bodies where we do lose our moisture and our elasticity. So that is incredible.
And our bladder. Both my husband and I used to wake up several times during the night. So we would both wake up, him more than me, several times in the evening. We now both sleep from 11 to 6 or 6:37 because our bladders have plumped and they form the hydrocele again. It's amazing. Yes, it's life-changing.
Fantastic. So if you could go back, what would you tell your younger self? Like, think of yourself at 22.
Don't sweat the little stuff, and that things would work out, because it's so true. We make ourselves crazy when we're in our 20s and not realizing that there's so much life ahead of us and so many good things to do. And I mean, like you said, look at me at 65, I started a career. I mean, yes, Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was in her 80s. So,
that's a great message for if you have a dream on your heart and you want to become an entrepreneur, you can do it. And that's part of the work that I do, helping and supporting people who have a business. They want to get support. They want to know who to go to ask these questions for their health, for their body, for their mind, for their spirit, and their business. Because we know that if we have a foundation of health, then we can truly do anything and enjoy our lives.
Yes, health is wealth. And you know what? My products are premium products, but my theory is, and it's not just mine, I'm plagiarizing someone else. You can pay for your health now, or you can pay for your illness later. And honestly, I'd rather pay for my health now. I mean, we eat only organic. Not only, maybe 95% organic. We rarely eat out. I believe in high quality food. I think that, you literally are what you eat.
I appreciate that so much. And I think people need to know, one, you don't have to be perfect. You're not looking for it 100% of the time. And some nutritionists and dietitians I work with would say, hey, 80% solution. That's really what you need to get to. If you're going the extra mile to 95%, that is great. But we also need to have grace with ourselves. Well, I know you touched on one of the things you're most proud of and kind of overcoming the abuse of your childhood, but there's something else that you're very proud of, and I would love you to share that about your mental health.
Okay, 22 years ago in 2000, I'm sure that it was there all along, but it didn't surface in a big way until 2000. I suffered a major psychiatric breakdown. It was a rare psychiatric reaction. As a matter of fact, Jane Pauley, the same thing happened to her. She wrote a book about it. And at that point, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, which is, it's not manic depressive, it's hypomanic. So my normal state is at normal. And then when I start to cycle, I go up to euphoria. And euphoria is a very fun place to be. You become very creative, but it also comes with a lot of pitfalls. There's impulsivity, inappropriate behavior, be it verbal or physical. It was obviously life-changing. I mean, I was actually hospitalized for 21 days in the psych ward. And my children were 16, 19, and 22 at the time. So it rocked our world. And at the time, I was president of my sisterhood. So I had 23 chapters of 23 women who ran committees underneath me. And my biggest thing when I went into the hospital is, my God, how is anybody going to survive without me? My family, I had a very ill dog, the synagogue, you know what? They all survived.
They all survived, and so did you, Nina. And I love that you focused on, because when a break happens in our mental health, and you are not alone, and I know many of our listeners have struggled with mental health, but not understanding what are the signs, and then to get help. And for some people, it is so severe, you need to go inpatient. And I think they're starting to find the studies as well, because a lot of these breaks are finding with diagnoses with women who are in perimenopause and menopause. And it's a change in hormones, a change in brain. And when you have teenagers as well, it just kind of compounds the issue. And we're finding this correlation between people who have been married 20 some years, and they are in their 40s and 50s, and their kids are teenagers, and there's hormonal fluctuations. And then it's rising to the surface to these issues that, like you had said, have been there, but they've been manageable until they reach their breaking.
For me, as I mentioned earlier, my mother was killed in 1995. She was actually buried on June 25th. My father, who I had been estranged from for over 3 or 4 decades, passed away on May 18th of 2000. On June 25th of 2000 is when I had my break.
Okay.
So there's definitely triggers. It was the loss of my mother. It was the loss, the death of my father. And I had no relationship with my father. So when I estranged myself from my father, I lost my entire paternal family, cousins and everything. We're now friends on Facebook, but.
Well, I'm sorry that happened to you, because I think we need to have more conversations of believing women, believing victims, and even if it's hard for someone out there to imagine, why not default to building that trust, showing compassion and empathy, and saying, I'm sorry this happened to you.
Exactly. And it's funny because my mother-in-law took me to Florida. My paternal grandmother lived there. I had no intention of really seeing her. And my mother-in-law said, we have to go see her. This is her firstborn grandchild. We have to go. So, and I tried to explain to her why I didn't want to see her, why I wasn't part of that family. And I told her the truth. And I said to her, I'm a victim of incest. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and she yelled at me. She goes, you are not a victim. She goes, you are a survivor. And she turned my whole trajectory. And then now I say, I'm not just a survivor. I'm no longer a survivor. I'm a thriver. Because I've taken that situation. And I always say first of all, my motto is friends of the family we choose for ourselves. And my second motto is my past has molded who I am today. I'm an empath. I have tremendous empathy. I could basically spot a child who's being abused or is being, it's just like the antenna, the mother's intuition, the antennas go off.
I love how you've shifted that, because when someone is the victim in that moment, when that act happened or is happening, if it's a recurrent, but then there does come a time in life where we need to say, okay, at that time, maybe I was a victim, but now I'm a survivor. And then taking it one step further to being a thriver. And
Mhm.
I love that because that's you taking back control of your body, your mind, your spirit, and your business, which resonates a lot with what we do. Wow.
And by the way, you said women in their 20 who are married 20 years, and we just in August we celebrated our 48th anniversary.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And I'm a child of divorce, so that children of divorce sometimes end up following the same pattern. But that was one of my vows when we got married. I said, I will never get divorced.
Okay.
I will find a way to work through things.
Well, and work through things you have, because life is never easy. But I will say, for a caveat, if anyone out there is suffering from physical or emotional or sexual abuse by a partner, that it would be best for you to get support and get help and to get out. So
Absolutely.
Everyone gets to make their own choices. But I think there's also been that narrative in life of, oh, you know what? You need to stay no matter what. And I would say it's very important to.
Even when they say you stay together for the children who live in that situation come out more messed up than those that have to. I mean, back in the 60s, a divorce wasn't an easy situation. It wasn't as common as it is now, but it was still better than being in a house where, your father was beating your mother, and,
right.
It was far different.
Absolutely. And I think looking back on what I've learned from you from today is reframing, right, our mindset. And just because something happens to you does not mean that defines who you are, whether past, present, or future. And something that is done to, whether it's a child or a young adult, that is not okay that was done, but you can heal and move forward with the right support systems. And if you have a mental health issue, no matter what age or whether it's neurodiversity, and that's something that I certainly deal with adult ADHD. And, sometimes that mean girl in our brain can just get on us of like, why can't you focus? Or why can't you feel cheerful? Or why not? Yeah. So I think, Nina, you've given us this great positive way forward of using collagen for healthy skin, hair, and all of our skin everywhere, and really giving us that strength and that voice and that courage. And I love that you're proudly over 70 because you don't look it at all. And I want to be able to share, how can people find you?
Okay, I just want to add one other thing. One of the best things that came out of becoming an entrepreneur, or as I call myself, a healthpreneur, is that this type of business is personal development with a comp plan, a very good comp plan, might I say. But my personal growth over the past 5 years has gone from here, like the bipolar, it's gone from here to here. So for those who are listening, it's gone from normal to extraordinary. The growth, I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago.
Oh, that is great. And that gives us hope for our future, no matter your age. If you are a young adult hearing this, if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s, then we hope that you find this encouragement. And Nina, I know your handle on Instagram.
My handle on Instagram and TikTok is Silverwarrior4U. And then on Facebook, I am Nina Sloan, Sloan Rubin. And my email is nina824@icloud.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us at Hill Talks. And we love encouraging women of all ages and stages that there is hope and a future, and you are not alone. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, then I'm going to ask you to subscribe where you like to listen to podcasts and share with a friend. You can send it directly to them. All right. Wow. I learned a lot and I did feel encouraged, but I'll be honest with you. I myself felt a little bit triggered with some of the content, but in the podcast, I work so hard to edit it so that it really makes a smooth experience. And I really admire how Nina is able to just kind of tell some of her story without taking it on. And the best part for me was the message to our younger selves. Can you remember that it will all work out? And there is so much life ahead of you. And I'll tell you, if your younger self is 50, then tell her that, because the age you are right now, in 20 years, you're going to really wish that you appreciated her. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. And without you, there would be no show. You can check out the show notes. You can subscribe. Thanks. Have a great one.